Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on pilot plant scale-up techniques. I'm Mrs. Harita, Associate Professor from the Department of Pharmaceutics. Today, I'm going to take a webinar on this pilot plant scale-up techniques. This is the first and important topic that we have in the Industrial Pharmacy 2, which comes in your 7th semester. And in today's presentation, we are going to mainly see about what actually the pilot plant is, and what is the importance of this pilot plant? What is the significance? Why the personnel are required? Like, what should be the main qualifications of the personnel, or what are the main responsibilities or roles of that particular person who is working in the pilot plant? And also the space requirements in the pilot plant, because whenever we are constructing a plant, okay, plant in the sense here, it is a industry. So whenever we are constructing that, there should be a certain plan for that. Okay, so what should be the space requirement? How should be the arrangement of the equipment should be? All those things will play a major role, and we'll be seeing that in this particular topic. And what are all the raw materials that we use in the scale up? Documentation, SUPAC guidelines. This is very important because definitely this question would come in your university examinations regarding the SUPAC guidelines, and also platform technology in the scale up. So what actually this platform technology is and how it is useful in the pilot plant scale up techniques. Right. So proceeding further, we'll just go with the introduction first. A plant, what actually a plant is. So according to any particular definition regarding this industrial plant, the 5 M's will come into the existence, or 5 M's together, they are used to build a plant for a manufacturing unit. So what are these 5 M's? These 5 M's are nothing but they are the money, material, mankind, that is personnel, how many people are required. So man, and then we have the method as well as the machine. So all these 5 M's are required in order to construct a plant, and which is used for the manufacturing of this particular product. That is why we call it as the 5M. So now coming to what actually the pilot plant is. So this pilot plant is considered as an intermediate. Okay, so that comes as an intermediate between the lab as well as the industry. In the laboratory, you can always go with certain very small quantity of the product, right? If in your laboratory, if in your practicals, if your lecturer asks you to prepare the tablets, they may ask you to prepare only 10 or 50 tablets, or maximum up to 100 tablets. Okay. And even those 100 tablets, what usually the students do, they will be divided into the batches, and each batch would be preparing some 10 or 20 tablets, and all together you go for the punching of the tablet, right? That is the laboratory scale. However, the industrial scale is such a way that where you will be preparing these tablets in a huge quantity, in tons you'll be preparing, in millions of the tablets you'll be preparing. So in between this laboratory scale and the industrial scale, that comes a pilot plant. So why do we require this pilot plant? Because you can prepare tablets in a very small scale, that is the laboratory scale. And now directly, if you go for the industrial scale where you are producing them in millions together, if any small problem happens in between, then all that millions or all the efforts that you have kept will go wasted. Is it not? So that is the reason you require an intermediate stage where the laboratory scale has been brought up to the pilot scale, and from pilot you are taking that to the final industrial scale. For example, I can give you an example like you are preparing for the exams. While you are preparing for the exams or you are in the semester, if we ask you, if your lecturer asks you to directly write the final exam, you may not have much experience in writing the final exam, because you doesn't know what would be the question paper pattern. You doesn't know what questions may come in the, or how you have to write each answer for the question that have been asked in the final examination. So that reason, there will be a curriculum where you'll be writing the internal exams. So here, the internal exams are nothing but the pilot plant. See, in the pilot plant, like in the internal exam, you won't be studying all the entire syllabus at a time. You'll be studying for first internal, you'll be studying half of the syllabus. For second internal, you'll be studying another half of the syllabus. So in total, you'll be writing it in the final exam. In the same way here, in pilot plant, you will be manufacturing certain products which would be intermediate to the laboratory scale and the industrial scale. Hope now you are clear about the pilot plant. Then what actually is the scale up? Scaling up is nothing but now you're taking them, scaling up in the sense you're increasing the number. Okay. So whatever the design that you have taken from the prototype is nothing but a model which is representing your final product. For example, you must have seen this particular science exhibition, science fair exhibitions. So where they would create the models. Okay, they would create the heart models, brain models, kidneys models. So they are representing the actual thing. So here the prototype is nothing but it is representing the one that you has to get it in the final industrial level. Okay, so the scale up is nothing but the data for designing of the prototype, which is using data obtained from the pilot plant models, right? So this is the pilot plant as well as the scale up. So now let us see what actually the purpose of the pilot plant is. So the purpose of the pilot plant is, the first one is to assess the feasibility. So here assessing the feasibility is nothing but your pilot plant will test whether a laboratory process can be scaled up successfully and efficiently, as well as considering the products like process stability as well as the reproducibility. So when you are going for the higher scale, the larger scale, you have to see whether the procedure that you have implemented in the laboratory scale is going to work out or not. So in extra quantity, you're doing that in the pilot plant. And then you have to optimize the parameters, like whatever the parameters like temperature or pressure or mixing time, whatever it is that you have used in the laboratory scale, whether the same thing can be used in the industry scale or not, you're going to test that in the pilot plant. And then the third purpose is to have the quality assurance. So here the quality assurance is nothing but whatever the pilot plant that you're doing, it will help you to ensure that the product manufactured at this level will meet the required quality specifications. And if you want to make any adjustment, for the larger scale, that is for the industrial scale, you can make those adjustments in this particular pilot plant. And also the cost evaluation, that is you can evaluate the cost, what actually the cost would be. Okay, so for preparing 10 tablets, this is the so and so cost, and to prepare in huge quantity, what could be the cost. And now let me see by preparing that in the pilot plant, so that you can run the process, or you can run the manufacturing unit at a pilot scale. And also here the companies can estimate the costs that are related to the full scale production, starting from raw material consumption, and also the people like labor who are required to prepare all those things. Before making a larger investment, they has to take certain decision, or they has to take some estimations. For that reason, we will be using the pilot plan. And then the next one comes to the importance. What is the actual importance of this particular pilot plan scale-up techniques? This pilot plan scale-up technique, it is mainly used to bridge the gap between R&D and the commercial manufacturing. R&D is research and development, which you will be doing in the laboratory. And commercial manufacturing is the industrial production of your products, right? So this pilot plant, it is acting like a bridge. It is connecting your laboratory to the industry, that is R&D to the industry. So the first important thing that we can have is the risk minimization. So it always reduces the risk that is associated with the direct scaling up from the laboratory to the full scale production. So that if without using the pilot plant, if you're directly going for the industrial scale, it may lead to failure, and sometimes it may also lead to the product inconsistency. So while preparing it in the pilot scale, you're minimizing the risk of, you're minimizing certain risks. And the next one is the regulatory compliance. So while you're testing this at the pilot scale, it always ensures that whether you are complying that with the regulatory standards. So before going for the commercialization, this particular complying with the regulatory standards is very important for you before you go for the commercialization. And resource optimization, very important. So here resource optimization is nothing but whenever you're preparing that in the pilot scale, it always helps you to determine the most efficient use of the resources. Resources are nothing but raw materials, energy, personnel for the large scale productions. Then technology transfer. So here the pilot plant, it simplifies the technology transfer process, that is from R&D to the production floor by like it gives you the blueprint of the scaled up process. So that means you're just going to give an outline how it just looks in the large scale production. Okay. So this is about what actually the purpose of the pilot plant and also what is the importance of the pilot plant. Hope everyone are clear with this particular slide. Then moving on to the next slide, we have what is the actual process. Okay, so here we will be seeing about the development cycle from lab scale to the full scale manufacturing. You can see we have the 5 stages where the first stage is always the laboratory scale, followed by the process development, then pilot scale testing, and then scale up adjustments based on the pilot test, and then we have full scale manufacturing. So the first one is always the laboratory scale. So here in the laboratory scale, the initial formulation and the process development in the small batches happens. So as I said, in your laboratory, how you'll be preparing very small number of the products. And then process development. From this laboratory scale, whenever you're going for the process development, you will assess what are all the parameters that we have to keep in mind. So you're going to test different variables and the methods to refine this particular process. And then the third comes the pilot plans, pilot scale testing, or also scaling up. Both together, they go hand in hand, these two, right? Because in the pilot plant itself, you're going to introduce your scale up. Scale up is nothing but improvement or increasing the number. Okay. So this is the most critical stage, which is used to simulate as well as adjust the process for the large scale production. So finally comes the full scale manufacturing, nothing but in your industries. So after successful pilot testing, the process is scaled up to full industrial production, and then it goes for the market. Finally, it is ready for the market use. Okay, so this is the development cycle where it goes from the lab scale to the industrial scale. Right. Now, moving on to the next slide, we will be seeing about the significance of the personnel. So here, the significance of the personnel from this particular slide, you can understand what is the critical role that a skilled personnel or a skilled person plays in the success of the pilot plant. And also this particular thing, we can divide this into the 4 subcategories. Okay. So the first category is the qualified personnel. So the qualified personnel is nothing but, again, under qualified personnel, it can be divided into 2 subcategories. They are experience and expertise, and then interdisciplinary skills. So you understand what is the experience and the expertise. So it is nothing but whoever the people that are involved in the pilot plant, they should have a strong background about both research as well as the manufacturing operations. That means they should be familiar with the you can say that they should be familiar with intricacies of both laboratory scale experiments and also the challenges that they may face in the large scale production. So they need to understand how to operate the specialized equipment which are used at the pilot plant. And also they should be well versed with the good manufacturing practices, because we have to use this good manufacturing practices in the industries. So they should be well versed with all the procedures they use in the pilot plant. At the same time, the good manufacturing practices as well as the regulatory standards. And coming to the interdisciplinary skills, the pilot plant means it should include individuals from all the departments like pharmaceutical scientists, chemical engineers, or quality assurance, production managers, quality control people, regulatory department, everyone. They should be in contact with everyone. And also they should have the knowledge of the interdisciplinary knowledge is very important. So for example, if a pharmaceutical engineer is there who understands how to do the transition from small lab equipment to larger machinery, he is this particular type of the person is essential so that he can avoid the scale up issues like maybe uneven mixing or heat transfer problems like that. They can avoid such type of the problems. And the second criteria that comes under the personnel is a collaborative roles. So here the collaborative roles, under collaborative roles, again we can have two subcategories. They are the cross department collaboration and another one we have is the teamwork. Nowadays we are listening mostly to this word called as the teamwork. Obviously, if we do in a team, it will reduce the burden on one person. Hence, it multiplies the success. There are many proverbs on that and good sayings on that. So coming to this cross-development collaboration, here the scale-up is not the it is not just the job of only one department. It requires the collaboration of multiple departments like R&D, quality control, production, okay, and quality assurance, regulatory bodies. So here, R&D focuses on transferring the lab scale to the pilot scale, whereas quality control, it is going to ensure that the products are meeting their requirements at every stage. And the production team works on the practical implementation and refining of the scale-up product. So that is why they require the cross-department collaboration. And coming to the teamwork, the collaboration across the departments here, they ensure that if any issue is happening in the pilot plant, they can be addressed from multiple perspectives, ensuring this smoother scale. Okay. So then coming to the decision making, this is one more important characteristic that should be there in the personnel in the this particular decision making. So here under decision making, again, we have two types, that is real time problem solving and troubleshooting. So real-time problem solving is nothing but it is one of, you can consider this as one of the most critical role a person will play during the scale up in identifying the issues and also making the real-time adjustments to that particular. See, this real-time problem solving, I can give you a better example, is everyone's mother. Okay, yes, everyone's mother, she will be a real-time problem solving because, for example, she is cooking something for you and there is some disturbance in the cooking. Maybe the salt has been increased or the bitterness has been increased or something, or sourness has been increased. She'll do something or the other and immediately she will rectify that problem and give you a delicious food. In the same way here, in the real-time problem solving, the person who is involved in that, he should have the 360-degree knowledge so that if any problem is arising during the scale up or in the pilot plant, they should immediately take up the problem and they should know how it has to be solved. So the scale up here, it because the scale up is nothing but it is a new one, because you're transferring it from pilot plant to the industrial scale. It is a new one. So any unexpected challenges may arise. So that unexpected challenges have to be addressed on the spot. Even like now, the platform that we are using this particular thing in order to reach this particular information to you during COVID-19, as we all face like face to face when we couldn't have the opportunity of taking the lessons or listening to the lessons, we have used the online platforms like these in order to give the information. So that is the real time problem solving. This is the best example you can take it as. So here, the personnel also should have the authority to make quick decisions like adjusting the temperatures or changing mixing speeds or even modifying the ingredient ratio so that the entire process will not get any break or pause in between. And coming to the troubleshooting, again, it is the same. If any problem arises with the equipment, they should know how to restart that, or they should know immediately how to troubleshoot that equipment and the process problems quickly and minimizing the downtime. Downtime in the sense breakdown. For example, if your tableting machine has not been worked for 20 minutes, then there will be a huge loss in the production of the tablet. So you have to reduce that downtime, or you have to reduce that breakdown time. And then the next one we have is the training and expertise. So again, under training and expertise, we have three subcategories. They are the continuous training, specialized equipment handling, and then adapting to the technology. See, all these you have to remember because almost the people, whoever are listening to this webinar would be in the 7th semester, that is in the final year of your B Pharmacy. So all these things you have to imbibe in yourself so that you can train yourself better and you can be placed in your you can be placed in a better companies. Okay, so the continuous training is nothing but the people whoever are involved in the pilot plant scale up techniques, they have to keep on taking training on the new technologies, equipments, and even the updated regulatory requirements. And also they should know how to use the specialized equipment, because a smaller tablet punching machine cannot be used, the same tablet punching machine cannot be used in the industrial scale. He should know about how to use the small one and also the huger one. And for example, the granulators or the dryers, whichever we are using, we'll be using hot air oven in the laboratory scale. And however, definitely we won't use the hot air oven there. We'll be using the huge dryers there, fluid bed dryers or spray dryers we will be using in the industrial scale. So that handling of the specialized equipment should also be known by the person, and adapting to the technology. Absolutely. So now we are getting all these terms called as artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, Internet of Things, everything we are getting. So you're adapting that technology, whatever the things we want to learn, to that we are adding the technology. So you're bridging the gap between that science and the technology so that you will be involved in the automation of your processes, the data analytics of your processes, everything will be involved. Okay. So the personnel, whoever are involved in the particular pilot plant scale up technique, they should be a qualified personnel. They should have the collaborative roles, should be very active in the decision making, and also they should be very well versed with the training as well as the expertise. Okay. So this is all about this particular slide. Then moving on to the next one is the space requirements. Okay, so the space requirements here is nothing but what is the actual space, or what should be the actual layout of the pilot plant. So this particular slide, it mainly focuses on importance of the space planning in the pilot plant so that you can ensure the smooth operations and also effective products you may get, and also the product quality. So in a pilot plant, the layout and environmental factors, they mostly impact the success of the scaling up in the pharmaceutical manufacturing process. So the first one is the layout design. Under that, we have efficient use of the space. Whatever the space that you should be efficiently use that. That means the space should be carefully allocated to accommodate larger equipment, raw material storage, and also the people movement. Okay. However, the poor layout, which it may lead to inefficiency, safety hazards, because if it is very clumsy, if any fire accident or any chemical hazard, chemical accident happens, there won't be proper way for the people to escape out. Okay. So, and even it may lead to the product contamination. Then flow of materials and personnel. Here, the design should allow the uninterrupted flow of the raw materials. So I can say it as a uninterrupted flow of the raw materials. For example, you are preparing the tablets. So tablets, how you will be preparing? First, you will be procuring all the raw materials, say, okay, you will be weighing them, you will be triturating them, everything, right? So, and then you will be sending it for the sieving. And after sieving, again, you will be using the granulating agents and you will be preparing the granules. And from granules, it should go for the punching, or you will be going for the drying first. And after drying, you will be going for the compression. And after compression, you will be going, if at all coating is there, you'll be going for the coating. And after coating, you'll be going for the packing, right? So here, the flow of materials here, it is nothing but in the pilot plant, whatever we are arranging, they should be in the same order. First, procuring the raw materials, then sieving. After procuring the raw materials, you should not keep here the coating pan. If you keep the coating pan, what happens? In the third stage, it is not required. So if the coating pan is there, the sieving will be here. So after procuring, you should come to the sieve here and again go to the granules. It will be like a zigzag. It will be like a maze, very clumsy. Okay, so that is the reason there should be a proper flow of the materials depending upon at what stage or which stage comes after which stage. Okay, you have to please bear it in mind in while you are designing the layout, right? And then space for future expansion. You won't want your company to be at the same place when you have developed. You want to expand it, right? So the layout always, it should be flexible enough to allow for the future process changes or even the expansions. Maybe in future, you want to keep all these stages in only one equipment and you want to bring that equipment to your particular industry. So what happens? You should have that particular scope for the expansion of your industry, right? And then the second one comes the segregation of areas. Okay, so the second space requirement, it is the segregation of areas. We should have the separation of the critical areas, like different areas of the plant, it should be segregated in order to prevent the cross contamination and also to ensure the integrity, right? So that is why we have various segregated areas like raw material storage, where you'll be storing all the raw materials which you have procured from your like suppliers. Okay. And then in process material zones. In process material zones is nothing but where the materials that are being processed are kept before moving it to the production stage. For example, the granules, the tablets have been prepared. Now it has to be sent to the coating. Before sending it to the coating, you will be placing them in a warehouse, which is called as a in-process material warehouse. Okay. And then finished product area. So the finished product area is nothing but where you are keeping all your finished products at one place. And handling hazardous materials, it is very, very important, especially coming to the pharmaceutical industry, right? So if any hazardous chemicals or materials are used, they have to be separated and isolated, and they require utmost security and the safety. And then controlled access. There will be certain areas where it will be, the access will be very controlled. Controlled access is nothing but uh, there will not be allowance for everyone to enter into that particular area. Only the authorized people has to go into that particular area. So, for example, like sterile areas or clean rooms, where strict environmental standards have to be maintained. So for those areas, the restricted entry will be there, and only authorized people should go, yeah, should go in and out of that particular area, right? And then the next, the space requirements, the next one we have is the environmental control. Environmental control here is nothing but the temperature control, humidity control, as well as air ventilation and the quality. Sorry, air quality and ventilation. So here the temperature is nothing but there would be certain products which are very much sensitive to the temperature. Okay, so for such things in the particular production room, you have to maintain the temperature. In the, for example, in production of some heat sensitive drugs like biologics, the temperature, it has to be monitored continuously, and also you have to provide certain precautions or measures to avoid the degradation. And then we have is the humidity control. Excess humidity can always lead to the product degradation, especially for the hygroscopic materials. You know about what are hygroscopic, which have the tendency to absorb the moisture from the atmosphere. They are called as a hygroscopic materials. And also a well-defined HVAC systems should be there. HVAC systems are nothing but heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, which is essential always to control the humidity levels in the different areas of the industry, right? Why I say the different areas of the industry here is, for example, the granulation and drying processes are, both these processes are sensitive to temperature as well as humidity. So controlling this temperature and humidity will lead to the proper granulation as well as the drying process tablet granules. Okay. And then we have is the air quality and ventilation. So here the air quality and ventilation is, you have to always maintain the clean air, and adequate ventilation has to be given in the pilot plant in order to avoid the contamination, especially in the sterile rooms as well as the clean room environment. So a perfect ventilation system has to be provided. At the same time, though ventilation is there, there should not be any disturbance in the quality of the air, right? So this is the space requirements which we have studied under 3 headings. That is, the first one is the layout, design, and then followed by segregation of the areas and the environmental control. Moving up to the next slide, raw materials in the pilot plant scale. So in this slide, we are mainly focusing on what is the critical role of the raw materials in the success of the pilot plant. Okay, so when you are when you are translating from the laboratory setting to the pilot plant, handling, sourcing, as well as quality control of raw materials, it is very important, because the large scale production, it may change all these particular parameters. Okay, so we'll be studying this under 4 headings: consistency and availability, supplier qualification, quality control, as well as process compatibility. Okay, so under consistency and availability, the consistency in quality. That means here, this I can say that this is the biggest challenge in scaling up, to ensure that the raw materials used in the pilot plant have the same properties and the qualities as those that you have used in the laboratory scale. Okay, so the variations in the raw material, even the small changes in the raw material, can make a very big difference in the final product, which leads to the changes in its performance, safety, as well as the efficacy. So always there should be a consistency in the quality. And then bulk availability. So the bulk availability is nothing but, in the laboratory scale, all the raw materials would be required in a very less quantity. But when you're going into the pilot scale, you need them in a very bulk, so that you should always ensure the availability of raw materials in bulk without compromising on the quality of the product. And then third one we have is the uniformity. That means whatever the raw materials, it should have the uniform characteristics like particle size or moisture content or purity. They should be very uniform, so that like you can ensure that they behave the same way that they have performed in the laboratory scale, and also they will be performing in the pilot scale. Okay, so that is about the consistency and availability. And then supplier qualification. The second one comes as a supplier qualification. So the supplier qualification here, it is nothing but, the supplier should be a reliable person. Okay, so as the production scale is increasing, your production scale is increasing, it becomes more important for you to establish the relationship with reliable suppliers who can provide the consistent, high quality raw materials in large quantities. That is a very important one. They should be providing the same quality even in the large quantity, quality and quantity, right? And then the supplier audits should be performed, because before scaling up, the suppliers, they should undergo the rigorous audits to ensure that their manufacturing practices, they meet the required standards for quality, consistency, as well as the safety, so that these audits will ensure that the materials they provide will meet the specifications which are needed for the pilot plant production. And approved vendors. So next we have is the approved vendors. So approved vendors is nothing but the pilot plant. It must work with approved suppliers, those who have thoroughly prepared their products by following the good manufacturing practices and all. That is why we always try to take them from the approved vendors. Okay. Then coming to the third one, that is the quality of the products or quality control. So regular testing of the raw materials should be taken place, so that you are going to ensure the purity as well as the consistency of your quality of your product. And then specifications and the standards, the raw materials whichever are used in the pilot plant, they must meet the same specifications as those which we have used in the laboratory. There should not be any deviation in the specifications. And sampling procedures, the sampling procedures, like you have to implement the standardized sampling procedures to ensure that the raw material batches are tested regular. So even if a supplier is approved, each batch, whenever you are getting into your industry, they have to check, they have to be checked for the purity and the quality, and then only they have to be entered into the entered into your industry. That is how you are going to check the quality of your products. And then the next one we have is the process compatibility. So the process compatibility is nothing but here we will be studying the process compatibility under three headings, like material behavior in the larger equipment, equipment calibration, as well as the process modifications. So material behavior in the larger equipments is nothing but the raw materials which you have used in the small scale, like laboratory scale, they may behave differently in the large scale equipment because of the scaling up of the process. For example, the flowability of the powders or mixing properties of the liquids, they may change when you are scaling up them from the laboratory scale to the pilot scale. And then coming to the equipment calibration. Equipment calibration here, like for example, if you take the equipments like mixers, dryers, reactors, they require different operating parameters compared to the lab scale equipment. So you have to ensure that the raw materials are compatible with the pilot plant process, and is essential to prevent certain issues like caking or clumping or even the poor mixing of the ingredients. And process modification is like, in some cases, how much ever the care you are taken, there may be certain uh, steps where the process has to be adjusted. Okay, so this adjustments of the process, it may need to be accounted for the difference of how the raw materials behave at the larger scale, like increasing the mixing time, or increasing the mixing speed, or increasing the tablet punching speed. Like that, there will be difference in the process modifications. So for example, if a specific excipient behaves differently when processed in a large scale quantity, the process parameters like mixing time or drying conditions or processing conditions, they have to be adjusted in order to maintain the good quality of the product. Okay, so this is how the raw materials play a vital role in the pilot plant. Then moving on to the next slide, we have the documentation, very, very important one. So the documentation here is nothing but, this particular slide will focus on how this documentation is very important in the pilot plant scale-up techniques. So this documentation, it ensures the scale-up process is like traceable, Traceable is nothing but because of these documents, you know what actually is happening in the pilot plant. Repeatable. Repeatable is if you have done in one particular process today, again, if you do in the same process in the next day, you are supposed to get the same result. That is repeatable. You should have certain document. For example, today I have prepared certain tablets. Tomorrow I'm not going to go to the industry. If other person comes, then that other person can easily see the document and prepare the tablets. So that is what repeatable. And also they should be compliant with the regulatory bodies. Not compliant with the regulatory bodies. So here coming to the importance of the records, like again, as I said, traceability and compliance, process reproducibility, as well as the risk management. Risk management here, it is nothing but the detailed documentation can always help to identify where the things went wrong in case of a deviation or any failure in the process. And also it helps pinpoint exact stage where corrective measures are needed. And then coming to the most important thing is the SUPAC compliance. SUPAC is nothing but scale up and post approval changes. It is called as a scale up and post approval changes. So you know what actually the scale up is and what are these post approval changes. Here, the SUPAC guidelines, they provide a documenting changes which occurs during the scaling up. Just now we discussed that if any excipient is not working normally in the large scale production, then we have all the authority and all the feasibility is there in order to adjust the process parameters, isn't it? So whatever the parameters that we are adjusting, those comes under the SUPAC guidelines. Depending upon the SUPAC guidelines, you have to go for the adjustment. So these SUPAC guidelines or compliance, you can divide the changes as three types of the changes. Minor changes, moderate changes, and maximum changes or major changes, we can call it as. So minor changes are nothing but the very small modifications which does not significantly affect the process or the product quality, but it has to be documented in order to know what change has been done. Okay, and also these particular minor changes, they does not affect the regulatory approval. And then moderate changes are, these involve the adjustment to equipment or even the batch size that need to be reported with supporting documentation, and also the additional testing is required if you are going for any moderate changes. And then major changes are nothing but there will be a significant change in the process parameters, equipments, or even the scaling up. They require the revalidation and again resubmission to the regulatory authorities for the approval, right? So this documentation for SUPAC, this is nothing but a thorough record of all the changes that must be kept, including the justifications for the change and also validation data and any new testing requirements, whatever are there, you have to document them. And then coming to the types of documentation. So the types of documentation includes here batch records, validation reports. Batch records are nothing but in each batch how you are preparing your product, and validation reports. So it is the validation report is to ensure that the processes it works at a intended scale. Like, yes, I am able to follow the same procedure and produce the same quality product in the industrial scale as well. And equipment cleaning logs. Okay, like whether the equipment has been properly cleaned or not, and whether it is preventing the cross contamination or not, all these things have to be taken care. And process validation documents. Process validation documents, they provide the evidence that the scaled up process have consistently produced a product which meets the predefined specifications. And also it includes the testing results as well as the performance metrics for like equipment, processes, as well as the finished products. And then the next thing that we have is the technology transfer documentation. So the technology transfer documentation is nothing but as the process move from the laboratory scale to the pilot scale, and then eventually to the large scale production, detailed documentation of each step in the process is essential. So what are all the documentation? What are the equipment used? What are the process parameters? Like what is the temperature we used? What is the pressure we used? What is the speed we have used? And what are the raw material specifications also we should see. And then transfer protocols, like when transferring the technology from R&D to the pilot plant, formal technology transfer protocol is required. So this formal technology transfer document, it mainly outlines the steps that are involved in scaling up the process. Like even it may also include like any adjustment that we have made to the equipment or even the process parameters during this scale up process. And then the third one we have under this technology transfer documentation is the validation and testing data. So all the test results from the pilot plant, like stability studies or dissolution tests or any assay studies, they must be documented, and also it has to be shared with the production team so that to ensure the same quality has been maintained in the large scale manufacturing as well. So this is the four important types of the documentation that we use in the pilot plant scaling up techniques. So we have seen about the importance of records, SUPAC compliance, types of documentation, as well as the technology transfer. Right. Then coming to the SUPAC guidelines in this particular pilot plant scale up techniques. So why we have to go for SUPAC? Okay, why we have to go for the SUPAC guidelines is that these are mainly introduced for the first reason. The first reason of these SUPAC guidelines is to help the pharmaceutical manufacturers to navigate. That means to overcome the challenges which are associated with the scaling up production or even the post-market post-approval changes. Okay. So in order to have a track of all these, it is main requirement or it is very useful for the manufacturers, pharmaceutical manufacturers. And these guidelines, they provide clear instructions. Okay. They are going to provide the clear instructions on what testing or validation and documentation are required for different types of changes that are taking place during the scale up. And it streamlines the process of scaling up, so it will take in a very smooth way. Okay, like it will streamline in the sense it will reduce or like it will ensure that minor changes do not require the same level of regulatory scrutiny just like that of the major one. Okay. Like for example, if your change, that is if the changes that you have done in the scaling up is not affecting the efficacy of the final product, then you need not go for again regulatory approval and waste all the time and uh, money and everything in order for the approval, right? So that is why the SUPAC guidelines are a boon for the pharmaceutical manufacturers. So again, coming to the various categories of the changes, we have minor changes, moderate changes, and major changes, like we have already seen just now. So if I want to give you an example for the minor changes, like it may involve the adjusting the speed of a tablet press in order to improve the product efficiency. Like in 1 hour, if I want to get 100 tablets, and if I improve the speed and made the production as 150 tablets, then it is considered as a minor change. And then moderate changes, increasing the batch size from 50,000 tablets to the 1 lakh tablets. It is nowhere affecting the quality of the tablet, nowhere affecting the efficacy of the tablet. So it comes under the moderate changes. And major changes is like here, the major changes include changing the type of the granulator which is used in the process, or even switching from wet granulation to the dry granulation. Obviously, you know, you must have done in your 5th semester industrial pharmacy one. You must have prepared the tablets. You know how to do the wet granulation and dry granulation. Definitely, the type of the granulation, it is going to affect the disintegration time, dissolution time. Eventually, it is affecting the drug released from the dosage form. So that is why it is considered as a major change. And then coming to the regulatory compliance. So here we have testing requirements as well as the documentation. So for moderate and the major changes, the SUPAC guidelines, they require additional testing to ensure that the product quality is not affected by the change. And also common tests include under this condition are dissolution tests, stability tests, as well as a bioequivalence test. And documentation is whatever the changes that you have done, they have to be documented in a way that it demonstrates the regulatory compliance. And also the documentation, usually it would be submitted to FDA or other regulatory authorities as a part of the post-approval change request. That means you have already got the approval from FDA, but in order to improve some efficacy or in order to improve certain things, you have made some changes. So that is why you have to inform that particular change to the FDA, right? And then benefits of the SUPAC guidelines. So first of all, it is going to reduce the regulatory burden. If I say that I have increased the production speed of my tablets from 1 to 50. So again, please give me the permission. If I go there, again, these regulatory people, they have to go through all the list of the documents that we have provided and they have to check, which takes a year long. So we are reducing the burden to the regulatory. Regulatory is nothing but the government. So you are reducing the burden to the government. And time and cost savings, obviously, when some change is not affecting the final quality of your product, there is no use of wasting the time as well as the cost. Okay. And then innovation. Innovation here is nothing but by providing a clear framework for making changes, this SUPAC, it is going to encourage the manufacturers to continuously improve the process and equipment without fear of regulatory delays. For example, if I feel like if I increase the speed of production of my tablets, I'm going to get such a profit. But again, if the regulatory body asks me to go for, from the beginning, you go for the regulatory approval and all, then I will just join my hands and say no need of any profit from that particular speed. Instead, instead of getting this, and again, if I have to go for the regulatory approval, thank you, Baba, I don't want any approval. I'll follow with the same. So they have that freedom. They'll be having that freedom, like the minor changes can be done in order to improve the efficacy, where we need not again go for the approval process. In that case, the innovations would come out. Okay. So this is about the SUPAC guidelines, which we follow in the pilot plant scaling. And one last topic that we have in this particular webinar session today, it is the platform technology in pilot plant scaling. Okay, so what is this platform technology? Generally, where do we listen the platform? We listen the platforms in the bus stations or railway stations, right? So here, the platform technology is nothing but it provides a common framework, okay, here. So it is going to provide a common framework which can be applied to multiply the products, at the same time allowing companies to reuse the processes and equipments rather than developing the new systems for each product. Okay, so that means you are using the same processes for the different products. You're not using, you're using the same processes for different products so that there will be a common thing that you are being followed in any particular company. And then the standardization is nothing but here. The core idea behind this platform technology is to create a standardized procedures which can be adapted with minor changes in order to accommodate the new products. And this particular process, it is simplifying the scale-up process. For example, let me give you an example. So a pharmaceutical company is there which uses the same platform for the tablet granulation, but it is only adjusting the binder concentration for different formulations. So what happens? You're not changing the granulating machine. However, you're changing the binder concentration. So the process remains largely the same, allowing only the faster validation and the approval process. That is what we call it as a platform technology, where you are creating a common framework in order to standardize the procedures and also to go for the faster validation as well as the approval. And coming to the advantages of this particular pilot plan scale up is the efficiency, flexibility, as well as the cost saving. So because platform technologies are pre-evaluated or pre-validated, they need not have again the repeated testing, so that you can save in both production as well as the regulatory approval times. That means you are saving the production time as well as the time that is required to get the regulatory approval. And you have the flexibility. Flexibility is nothing but a single platform here can be modified to accommodate different product formulations, which is allowing the companies to introduce the new products very faster. And you're reducing the cost by doing all this. So these three are the major advantages with the particular pilot platform technology. Okay, so this examples of the platform technology, you can take it as a continuous manufacturing. Like in a traditional batch manufacturing, each step is completed before moving to the next. Whereas continuous manufacturing, it eliminates this batch delay by allowing the process to run continuously. And also it is improving the efficiency and reducing the production time. And automated control systems, modular production units, all these comes as a examples under the platform technology. So what is the impact of platform technology on the scale up is it is going to reduce the variability. So we can call it as a reduced variability, simplified technology transfer, and regulatory compliance. So these three are the impact of platform technology on the scale up. That means the platform technologies, they are minimizing the process variability because they rely on the pre-validated processes, ensuring the quality of the product is maintained at the each scale. And regulatory compliance is as the procedures have already been validated. Again, you need not go for the regulatory approvals because it is complying with that of the regulatory approvals of the earlier procedures. Okay. Like for example, if a company is using an automated filling system for capsule, which may switch between the different APIs without the need for revalidation. And as because you're not going for the revalidation because the filling process is same. So this simplifies the regulatory filling process and also shortens the time taken to take that into the market. Okay. So this is about the platform technology in pilot plant scale up. This ends the various topics that we have discussed today. So when I go back to the first slide, to the contents of the slide, so we have seen about what actually the pilot plant is, and then significance of the personnel, what should be the qualities of the person who are involved in the pilot plant scale-up techniques, what are all the space requirements and raw materials that are used in the scale-up. So what are all the considerations that you should have for the raw materials, documentation, very, very important, and SUPSC guidelines and platform technology. These last three particular topics, they are very important when in an exam point of view. Okay, you may get the questions, you may expect the questions from these particular topics. And platform technology in scale up is a very important one where you can expect that in a short answer type question. Okay, so generally all the students say that this industrial pharmacy 2 is very dry. We'll be feeling bored when we are reading or something. So I just give you one particular tip here. Whenever you're studying the subjects like this, I used to prepare like that. For example, if you want to study this pilot plan scale up technique, first you have to assume yourself that you're constructing a pilot plant. So when we want to do something, then we will be obviously want to know about. Is it not? In future, maybe who knows, after your B Pharmacy, you may start an industry. So before going to the industry, first you have to develop a pilot plant. So when this particular pilot plant has to be developed, you should know uh, like what are all the things that are required here. So when you know what are all the things that are required here, it will be easy or it will be always interesting for you to know about this particular thing. Yes, when I want to start an industry, what are all the things that I require. So in that way, you start preparing, you easily take everything in the mind. And also you can go through all the particular slides here. And these particular slides, if you like, for example, if you see this, by just seeing these particular each step, you can elaborate the each step very easily. So here, this is all about the pilot plan scale up techniques. Hope everyone have understood about this topic. And thank you so much for joining us in today's webinar. Thank you.